Hi, it's Jaison Kerr here from Kerr Farm Vineyard at Kumeu in New Zealand. And as you can see, it's winter, and that means pruning. And I thought today we'd have a little look at some styles of pruning, and in this video we'll look at spur pruning. Now, spur pruning is used in vineyards, but it's also a great style of pruning to use in your backyard. You can use it to run a vine along a fence line, a wire fence, or you can train it over a pergola. So have a look at this and I'll catch up with you at the end.
So now I'm going to show you how to do spur pruning of vines. This is usually done on vines that are trained to a cordon. So a cordon is this semi-permanent arm that extends from the base or from the trunk. So they can be either unilateral or bilateral cordons. So in this case, we have vines that have two cordons that extend either direction from the main trunk. To do spur pruning, you basically need the same tools that you need for cane pruning. So you can have a hand pruners and a loppers, but you're going to make use of this hand pruners much more, because we're basically just going to cut back our 1-year-old growth to 1 to 3 bud spurs, depending on the system. In this case, because we have such a wide spacing, we can cut back our spurs to probably only 1 or 2 buds. So we're going to take a closer look at what these spurs will actually look like. So we have our cordon here, and from this cordon we have these little extensions that you see. We can call these arms. And from that arises our 1-year-old wood. So this 1-year-old wood is actually going to be the spur that we cut back to just a couple buds. And on here we want to count we're going to keep probably only 1 or 2 buds, and we want to not include our non-count bud. A non-count bud is this bud that arises right at that apex of where that new 1-year-old wood had come out. So we don't want to count this bud here, but we can count this one and this one. So we want to cut that back right there and remove that 1-year-old wood. So similarly, I'm going to go on through and cut back this all to 1-year-old wood. However, it's not so easy when we come to a spot like this where we have 2 canes coming out of an area. So what we want to do is choose the healthier of the 2, the one that clearly has the bigger diameter and looks healthy. In this case, it's this one. We want to remove this one right here, and we want to cut this back to that 2 buds. Not only do we choose the one that appears more healthy, but we choose the one that also is closer to the cordon. So while in cane pruning the head is the renewal zone, in a cordon trained system, our cordon is that renewal zone. So we want to cut back to that cordon. So we can cut back to 2 bud spurs. And if you have any older material like this in here, we can remove that completely. That's where our loppers comes in handy. So we can cut that off, and we don't have as much extra material in there. So we've got our spur right here. We can actually cut it down possibly a little bit more. So here's an example right next to it and this is pretty common in a cordon trained system, is that we might have a spur that no longer has any 1-year-old wood on it. In this case, we would remove it completely by bringing in possibly a handsaw that we could cut that out. So if we come down over here, we have a spur with significant area that can be cut off, older portions that can be cut off, and then we've got this spur here. So we want to cut that back to 2 buds. And you can remove any of this older material right here, which would have been the previous season's growth. And here's the same thing. We've got some older wood that we can cut out to clean it up. And we've got multiple things coming out here, multiple shoots. We want to keep the one closest in. These 2 would be removed. And this would be cut back to a 2 bud spur. And we keep continuing along the vine in that manner. So in this case, we came to a spur that we have to make a decision about what to keep and what not to. In this case, this shoot right here is actually closer to our renewal zone, our cordon. This one's just a little bit further away, but it has much nicer thickness or diameter, it looks a lot more healthy than this very short shoot here. So what we're going to do is we're going to maintain this shoot. Actually, we cut a little more, and we cut this one off completely. So that is what we will keep here. Then over here we can decide to keep some of this shoot right here, and we've got a lot of deadwood that we can come through later on and cut out. So you first pass through, you want to make your selections, your shoots that you want to keep, or these canes you want to keep that you're cutting down to just a couple spurs, and then afterward you come through and you cut out any excess deadwood that may exist in there. In some cases, you may have too many spurs next to each other, which might require you to remove some of these spurs. So we may choose to remove part of this one and keep only the spur right here. This really comes down to your shoot density per vine. Another thing is if you leave 2 buds on here, 2 shoots are going to grow from that. So you can potentially have more crowding in this area if you leave too many spurs in a given area. So now I'm at a completed vine that has been pruned to 2 or 1 bud spurs on a cordon system. And if we come and look at some of these, we have a nice display of these arms with the 1-year-old wood. We have any, if we have any that tend to have too many new spurs in an area, we can remove them, and that's the case right here. We actually have 2 spurs that we may actually want to choose one of them. So you can come in and actually remove one of them from that area to reduce the shoot density. In this case, we have an extension here that has really no new wood on it. We can remove that completely just to clean it up. And here's another one where we have 2 spurs. We can come in and remove one of them completely. So we can really clean up this area. Down here towards the end of a cordon, a lot of times can get very crowded. You can actually have a couple spurs. We might want to remove some of these spurs out of here. And these are about 20-year-old vines, and as they get older, this cordon can get quite gnarly. There can be cases where we may even want to renew that cordon, and in that case we could cut the whole arm off, and we would just lay out another cane, and that cane would serve as providing that new cordon, and we just would start to spur prune it over the years.
Well, I hope that gave you a pretty good overview of spur pruning. If you have any further questions, you can always email jason@kerrfarmwine.co.nz, and I'll see you next time.